It has been far too long. But welcome back to Wine Time Mysteries.
It's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, technically it's season 3, but we're not doing seasons anymore, so
Deal with it.
yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
When a man described as an average blue-collar worker walked into a Los Angeles police precinct wanting to speak to someone about a crime whilst handing over a loaded handgun, police would soon be shocked by what this monster by the name of Mack Ray Edwards was about to confess to. Let's jump right in. On March 6th, 1970...
On Mark 6.
Anyway, 17th of October, Libras, I tell ya, in Montgomery County, Arkansas, in the US of A. Arkansas, US.
Oh.
It's murder we're talking about, isn't it?
Oh, like saw it in
I
half.
saw, yeah.
Oh dear.
Shut up. Okay. By 1941, he would move to Los Angeles, where he would marry and go on to have 2 children. 2. He would later become a heavy equipment operator for Caltrans and would go on to help build some of the most well-known freeways in Southern California.
Caltrans, as it like California Transportation?
Yeah,
Caltrans?
yeah. On the 6th of March, 1970, Mack walked into the Foothill Community Police Station, which is just north of LA, accompanied by a young teenage boy. He tells an officer his name and that he's there to confess to a kidnapping. He pulls out a gun, hands it to the sergeant and says, "Be careful, it's loaded." When taken in for questioning, Mack went on to explain that he and his unnamed 15-year-old accomplice had broken into his former neighbour's house earlier that morning. They stole a few items from the home and went on to tell police that the family's 3 daughters were home: 12-year-old Valerie, 13-year-old Cindy, and 14-year-old Jan. Cindy and Jan. I was like, come on, guys. The Brady Bunch. They made the teenage girls jump into his vehicle where he drove them to the Angeles National Forest. Once he stopped, he pulled out his gun and told the 3 girls to get out of his car. With a bit of hesitation, they finally hopped out and the girls ran for it, going in opposite directions. Mack tried to chase after them, however he soon realised they were gone. This was when he headed to the police station as he knew he would be caught because the girls knew him. Mack told the sergeant that his plan was to sexually assault the girls and then kill them because they knew who he was. Police would send out a few officers to look for the girls, and thankfully all 3 were found unharmed, but obviously traumatised. Now you would think, hey, happy ending. This must be where the story ends. Guy turns himself in, oh, kidnap some girls. Take me in, officer. Unfortunately not. Mack said to the sergeant that he had some other matters to discuss. You see, he told officers that he had a guilt complex. He couldn't eat or sleep, which was beginning to affect his work. He stated, "You know that I'm a heavy equipment operator and I don't want to wreck the equipment or hurt someone." From here, he started unloading all the terrible things he had done that spanned well over a decade.
And this all because of a failed sexual assault.
Yeah, because it was his ex-neighbours, so they knew who he was.
Oh dear.
And he kidnapped, yeah. Just you wait, it only gets worse from there.
Yay.
I can't imagine the police officer that just has this like random guy walk in. Finally, starting with an unsolved case from 1953. Stella Darlene Nolan was an 8-year-old girl from Compton, California. She disappeared while at a market with her mother in Norwalk, California on June 20th. She was playing with a school friend whilst her mother worked nearby. When her daughter failed to check in with her, Alina, her mother, became frantic, searching everywhere for her daughter before contacting the police. Unfortunately, the case would turn cold. Even though the market was crowded, no one saw anything unusual or saw Stella leave with anyone, and I couldn't find any information as to how Mack was able to lure her away from the market, but he would tell police that he drove the girl to his house where he would sexually assault her before strangling her. 8 years old. He then threw her body off a bridge nearby, thinking she was dead. Later on, he would return to the spot where he had dumped her a few hours later, only to discover that she was still alive. So the poor little thing's like crawling to try and get away. As she was trying to escape, when Mack grabbed a knife and stabbed her. He then moved her body body to a construction site where he buried her in an
In an embankment.
This would later become part of the Santa Ana Freeway. I mean, working in construction, he probably knew where he could hide a body without getting caught. Mack goes on to tell the sergeant that actually Stella wasn't his only victim. 3 years after Stella was murdered, he confessed that he set his sights on his 11-year-old sister-in-law, Brenda Jo Howell, and her 13-year-old friend, Donald Lee Baker. I was so confused when I found that Brenda was his sister-in-law, but it's correct. So it's Brenda's older sister was Mack's wife, Mary. At the time, Mack and Mary were living in Azusa, California, which is northeast of LA. Brenda had been visiting her older sister and her trip was nearing its end. On the 6th of August 1956, Mack paid Donald $7, which would have been around $78, to bring himself and Brenda to the San Gabriel Canyon, just north of where they lived. Little did Donald know that Mack was there waiting for them. They arrived on their bikes where Mack confesses that he separated the two before slitting their throats. He then dumped their bodies off the side of a hill. He then took their bikes and Donald's jacket and placed them in 2 different places around town. Brenda's bike with Donald's jacket in one spot and then Donald's bike in the other spot. After 2 weeks of searching, police came to the conclusion that maybe Brenda and Donald had run away together, even though their bikes were found in perfect condition not long after they went missing. So they're like, oh, they just skipped town. Because apparently Brenda was saying she didn't want to go back home. Things kind of added up and he walked away. Mack went on to tell the officer that he apparently took a 12-year break from murder and kidnapping, but I call bullshit.
Also, what is up with serial killers taking... I just took a break.
Yeah.
I took a break from...
I'd had enough for a little bit, so I just went on vacation for 12 years.
Oh, I'm all full up. I'm just going to have a break.
Yeah. He was obviously escalating, so ain't no way he took a break.
No, and he's going for children.
Yeah. On November 26th, 1968, he would find his next victim. He broke into a home in Granada Hills, California, where a young girl lived that he had his eyes set on. When he realised she was not at home, he turned to her 16-year-old brother, Gary Rocher, instead. Mack forced Gary into his mother's bedroom, making him lay on the floor, where Mack then shot him. On December 16th, 1968, 15-year-old Roger Dale Madison had an argument with his father before leaving his house in Silmar, California, only to never be seen again. His family initially thought he'd run away, and scarily enough, Mack actually lived a few houses down from Roger, and Roger was actually friends with Mack's son. So he knew these people.
Can you imagine? There's probably nothing worse as a parent. Well, I can't say there's nothing worse, but than having like an argument or the last words you shared with your loved one, just in general, were words of anger.
Yeah. He confessed that he lured Roger into an orange grove where he stabbed him to death and buried his body with a bulldozer on the Ventura Freeway in Thousand Oaks, which was under construction at the time and where Mack was currently working. Finally, on May 16th, 1969, Donald Alan Todd, who was 13 years old, left school on his bike. Mack saw him riding home as he was driving and pulled over to talk to Donald. Apparently, he had offered him some help getting a job, I don't know, something like that, which ended up in Donald putting his bike into Mack's car, and they drove off. Donald would be sexually assaulted and shot, with some people walking by who would later find his body under a bridge. Now, this is when Mack stopped confessing, and he was arrested with 2 counts of murder for Donald and Gary, as their bodies had been found, and 3 counts of kidnapping. Now, as he'd told officers the location for the bodies of Stella, Brenda, and Donald, obviously if they could find something, it'd upgrade to murder. Police first headed to the Santa Ana Freeway to see if they could locate Stella's remains. After digging in a pile of compacted dirt, as Mack advised, they found a young girl's skeletal remains. Next, they go out in search of Brenda and Donald. As they weren't buried, but instead tossed over the hill almost a decade ago, police were unfortunately unable to locate their remains, because he just kind of tossed them, so given nature I guess in general. Now, as for Roger, the police decided to put the operation of locating his body on hold, as Mack told them he was buried under the Ventura Freeway, which would mean shutting down the freeway for who knows how long and would involve spending a lot of money to try and locate his body. And plus, who's to say Mack actually tells them where?
Yeah, what if he's fucking with them?
Yeah, that's the thing, how could you believe him, I guess? During a preliminary hearing on March 17th, 1970, Mack told the judge, "I don't need a lawyer, I'm guilty." So, I mean, at least he wasn't fucking around in that sense. Like, he didn't try to fight it.
I wish that maybe he just didn't kill kids, and maybe when he had the desire to the first time with that 8-year-old, that maybe he didn't do it and just said, "Oh shit, like something's like wrong up in my house."
I'm actually surprised he didn't do anything to his own kids. And I couldn't find anything to say that he did.
Well, I think it would be harder. I mean, it has not to say that he didn't sexually abuse them in any way, but like if the murder's in your backyard, you are going to have direct contact with the police. So why would you want to do that?
Yeah. While he was awaiting trial, he tried to kill himself a number of times, but unfortunately failed. By 1971, he finally got the sentencing he was after when he was sentenced to death. And I quote, "I want the chair. That's what I've always wanted." Unfortunately, by October 30th, 1971, he succeeded in taking his own life in his cell by using a TV power cord to hang himself.
This might sound callous.
Yeah.
How is that unfortunate?
Yeah. Well, because then, like, they didn't get to kill him, kind of thing. Like, he took the bitch away.
But, like, if he had already had there been a trial, you didn't need a trial because it was like, "I'm guilty."
No, they did, like, kind of a trial.
So there was already a trial where he was proven guilty. So technically, it doesn't really... To me, it doesn't matter after that.
It was reported as well that whilst in prison, Mack went on to say that he had killed way more children, and that number was more likely around 18 to 22. Which I kind of believe. Police had been looking into any victims that may have been missing during that 12-year hiatus that he said he didn't kill anyone, but they were like, as if you didn't. So yeah, if you want to have a little search for this guy and see the other disappearances police think he may be linked to, you can find it all online and dive down that rabbit hole. I'm going to name a few that police think are related to Mack. So as of March 2007, the LAPD was investigating the possibility of Edwards' involvement in the disappearance of Thomas Eldon Bowman, 8 years old, of Redondo Beach, I think that's what I was saying, who was last seen walking with his cousins and other family members on a trail. So yeah, he went missing on March 23. 1957. Bruce Cremens, 6, of Granada Hills, was last seen near Buckhorn Flat in the Angeles National Forest. So that was July 12th, 1960. And I mean, he'd gone there before to kill people as well, so. Karen Lynn Tompkins, 11. She was last seen on Friday, August 18th, 1961 in Torrance, California. Dorothy Gale Brown, who was 11, of Torrance, disappeared on a Tuesday evening, July 2nd, 1962, while riding her bike to a car wash near her home in Torrance, California. And the last one they think is linked to him is Ramona Price, 7, of Santa Barbara. She was last seen in her hometown at 11 a.m. on September 2nd, 1961. And with that, dear mung beans, is the story of a right old piece of shit called Mack Ray Edwards.
For me, I just think if he had come forward and made these confessions, right? Ones that he obviously wasn't even necessarily going to get done for. I don't understand why he wouldn't fess up to all of them, especially if the end goal for him was to get killed in prison or to die by death penalty. It doesn't make sense that he wouldn't.
Yeah.
He's not interested. It's like capital punishment, right? So what he's done is a capital crime. So he's being put to death. Why wouldn't you just come forward and say?
Yeah, I thought about that as well. And a little part of me, like, even though you can't reason with crazy like this or figure out what's going on in their mind, part of me thought it was almost like I couldn't be bothered having to go through details. Where's the body? The
logistics of how...
Yeah, that's how I saw it as. Like, because he knew he was caught, he came in. Those maybe were murders that he held on to closely, maybe, and then just kind of did that. Maybe the other ones he didn't actually know or remember or whatever, so maybe he just, like, I don't know, that's the vibe I got. He just couldn't give a fuck, like, didn't want to go through it all again. Wah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for blessing us with that episode this week.
You are so welcome. Catch you next week, mung beans.
Goodbye.
Bye.